You will see stuff coming out of my oil diffuser here. I can't get it out of frame. I mean, I probably could, but I'm not going to. It smells like orange blossom in here. Do you ever have an experience reading a book that you can't help but describe as anything but kind of surreal and just weird? I had this recently with Walk the Earth a Stranger by Rae Carson. Now, I love Rae Carson. Her Girl of Fire and Thorns trilogy is amazing and I adore it, and I seriously think it's kind of underrated. I don't know enough people who read it. And I remember when Walk the Earth a Stranger came out several years ago. I was so excited. I bought it on ebook, like just bought it. And then never actually read it. To be fair, actually, I did start it something like 4 or 5 different times since I bought it and just never finished it. Not only did I never finish it, I never even got past the first maybe 15-20% of the novel. And I couldn't really understand what it was that would sort of check me out of the reading experience, and then I would just never go back to it. And every time I picked it up, I started over. I didn't just pick up where I left off, because I went, do I even remember who these people are? And like, I know the concept, but that's it. But the experience I had reading it very recently was sort of strange. I started it and again had that feeling that I'm just not really quite into this. I don't know why. There's nothing really bad about it, but it's slow. And I'm waiting for the thing that like really hooks me into it, and I'm not finding it. But I'm also stubborn. I'd started it and I said, this is the last time I start this novel. Like, I'm going to finish this book. And I finished it in probably 2 days, maybe 3. I don't have a lot of time to read, so I was only reading it at night as I was going to bed. And I remember on one of the nights I stopped because I'm like, I need to go to sleep now. And I was like, of course. I hit the point where it suddenly gets good and I go to sleep. And I was like, oh, did it suddenly get good now? Like, what? And then the next night, I just read the rest of it. I just powered through the book and was like, holy crap, and it ended. And I was like, is that it? Like, no, you're not allowed to be done. You're not allowed to be over. Like, I'm not done with you yet. I'm not ready to leave. So I immediately bought the sequel on Kindle. Walk the Earth a Stranger really is a slow burn of a novel, and it, I think, starts slowly and because it's very deliberately setting up the primary character. Our main character is living out kind of in the Midwest, I believe, in the 1800s, right about the time as the California Gold Rush gets started. Why this is interesting is that our main character, in the one real bit of fantasy that this story has what we can call a gold sense. She literally can just sort of magically sense gold. In fact, what's interesting about it is that the way it's described initially in the book, it's almost like a compulsion. She senses it, and it's such a powerful feeling that she just sort of like is drawn like a magnet to it and like scrambles on the ground for it. It's kind of interesting. Of course, obviously, at this time, gold is an incredibly precious commodity. That is a lot of freaking money somebody could have if they're down on their luck. And, you know, that's why the gold rush happened. There's a reason that was a thing. So, like, say, my necklace here, which is gold, she would always know where I was. She wouldn't need to try, because here it is, and, like, she could just find me by my necklace. There's a gold locket that plays a rather prominent role, kind of in a way, through the novel at various points, and she does use it kind of like a homing beacon in a way, and I'm going, that's kind of clever. I like that. Well done. But again, this is a really slow starting novel. It opens with our main character not even thinking of going west. In fact, it's her friend who's thinking of going west, and she's like, IDK, I don't want to leave my family. Then we have the inciting incident, which is her parents are murdered. This is in the opening, like, 20-30 pages. I'm not really considering it a spoiler. This is like the inciting incident that kicks off the plot. Her parents are murdered, her uncle shows up, he is major levels of creepy, and it's pretty clear he killed her parents, and he knows all about her gold sense, and he's going to use her and take her to California and be like, there were a lot of levels of creepy with her uncle, and it wasn't just him wanting to essentially exploit her magical ability. I was getting some major creep vibes that were like, she's an underage girl, and she is your niece. Back the fuck up. Granted, this could just be me reading more into it than is actually there, but like legit, her uncle is 110% creep, and I am just like, no, reject. I don't want him near me. I don't want him near this character. I just, no, girl, you need to get the fuck out of there. And she does. And this is, again, part of the novel where I still hadn't quite gotten into it. She initially sets off because she's going to find her best friend in a particular town where he says he's going to be in order to head west. And that part is just, for me, again, still rather slow. It just plods along at a steady pace, and I still wasn't really invested. I think part of this is that a lot of time we're with the main character and she's alone. This may not seem like a big deal. There are plenty of books where main characters are relatively solitary and they're great. But I do think of a quote from the author Chuck Palahniuk, who you probably know is the author of Fight Club. And he said, you should never let your characters be alone. Just never. They should never be alone. Now, whether or not you fully agree with that, I, again, think it's kind of take it on an individual basis. Again, some books can take a character in solitary and do it well, but you can't necessarily sustain it for long periods of time. And while our main character does have run-ins with like people on the road on her way to this town before she can head west, it's not always great. She does spend most of it very alone, and for me, it's sort of redundant. You're just waiting for her to get to this town, because you know the moment she gets to this town, the plot is somehow gonna kick off. And while there are things that happen before then that are actually entertaining, she spends time on a riverboat, which was a part that I liked. It never quite gets there. Like I felt like I was working to read through that. And then the moment she gets to this town, I swear it was suddenly like the pacing appeared. And I think in a way I was sort of being unfair. And I'm still a little unfair in this review when I say like, oh, the pacing suddenly appeared. Oh, the plot was suddenly there. Suddenly I cared. I don't think it was necessarily that suddenly I cared. It was just that a lot of that early, kind of almost front half of the novel was really important in getting us to know our protagonist. We really needed to understand what she'd been through, how she manages to survive and deal with things that she's never dealt with before, so that when she begins that trek west in a wagon train, and they come across a lot of really intense and dangerous moments, from illness to raids to hunting buffalo to like people giving birth to, there's all these different families going west. There's a lot of stuff that happens. We understand her mindset and why she behaves the way she does, and then we also understand why she might have certain skills. But I still have to say that I don't really think the book picked up until the point she joined a wagon train and that wagon train headed towards California. Because all of a sudden, I was in. Like, I was following all these different families. There's a French-Canadian family, there's a German family, there's a family that she travels with, there's these bachelors, there's all these different people, all these different walks of life who are all so different, but all headed with the same purpose: to hit California, to start a new life, to join the gold rush. And I'm like, I am suddenly so invested. Especially with one character, actually the wife of the family that she's kind of teamed up with. I didn't know if I liked her at first. I kind of didn't, because she comes across as very cold and kind of distant, but I could sort of tell that I'm going, okay, something's like up with this woman. The relationship with her husband is sort of odd. And then there is a beautiful point in the novel where suddenly the wife just comes into her own and you realize she's a complete badass, and I was like, I love this woman. This woman is a queen and needs to be protected at all costs. Her husband did not deserve her. Oh my God. And then suddenly I was in this book. Suddenly I cared. And suddenly we reached a rather abrupt end. And I was like, I feel like I've been cheated, okay? Like, I understand the entire front half is very formative and very important, but I still feel like I've been cheated. I was not ready to leave at the end of that, and this does kind of make me glad that I took so long to get to this book. So the entire trilogy is out, so I can just binge read it, because it literally ends, just sort of ends. And it's like not a bad ending, but I'm just left like, I'd have been really pissed if I'd read this when it came out and knew I had to wait about a year for the next book. I'd have been like, are you kidding me? Rude. Thanks for watching me ramble today. If you'd like to see more from me, go ahead and click that button with my face on it. It'll take you to my channel, where I ramble about a whole lot of different things. Got some thoughts of your own? Go ahead and leave them down in the comments. And make sure that if you want to see more ramblings from me, you click that little subscribe button. That's it for me today, you guys, so until next time, cheers.